Hey ladies, welcome back to the Woman Podcast. My name's Katy Bezet, and we have Susan Martin here with us today. And we are talking today about Mary Magdalene, Mary at the tomb. Is it Magdalene?
Yes. You could say it several ways.
I know. When I was reading through it, I was like, Magdalene?
And the answer to that is yes.
Yes to all of it. Okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
So if you've been following along with us, or if you haven't, after Woman Conference, we had a Bible study that we developed for the ladies, and we talked through the different women in the Bible that had personal experiences with Jesus. So Miss Susan wrote about Mary Magdalene, and that devotional is available on the Woman Podcast if you want to listen back to that. But today we're just talking through that. We're talking through just you as the teacher, as you dug into it. I'd love to know more just about what you learned as you studied. I know you put a lot into the Bible study, but obviously when you study, there's plenty that gets tossed out for sake of time or length. And so first of all, did you choose Mary Magdalene?
I did.
You did? Okay, so why did you choose her?
I chose her because I've always been interested in biblical characters that for one reason or another have had a wrong character projected on them.
Okay.
And it bothers me a lot. And she, in the 6th century AD, a Pope named Gregory I decided that the sinful woman in chapter 7 of Luke and Mary Magdalene, who's introduced in chapter 8 of Luke, are the same person. And he also merged them with Mary of Bethany, which doesn't make sense to me at all. And if you read the scripture, there's nothing in any reference to Mary Magdalene that would impugn her character. Nothing, except that she had 7 demons come out of her, but we don't know if that was a mental illness. We don't know if it's a moral failure. We don't know what it was.
Right.
But it was some kind of bad malady.
Yes.
But there's nothing specific that impugns her character. But they decided back in the 6th century of the church that she was a prostitute and a woman of ill repute. And they even, in the Middle Ages, had Magdalene houses where fallen women would go. And don't you love that term, a fallen woman? Anyway.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. And men apparently don't participate in that.
No.
But anyway, well, so it bothered me a lot that this woman, who's a pinnacle of faith, she's mentioned in all 4 Gospels at the crucifixion and at the tomb. She clearly was somebody important with Jesus's entourage that was well known to everybody. And yet these painters, and there's lots of paintings like at the Louvre and famous art, and they depict her as this voluptuous sex pot person. And she really was
Right.
you know. And so that bothers me. So I wanted to help Mary Magdalene's reputation.
Well, you definitely did. Have you watched The Chosen?
Yes.
Okay. When I was reading this, I just kept thinking back to that. And I think that show does such a great job of depicting who she is. And you see the torment that she's under at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then how Jesus came in.
And it kind of makes her have a bad reputation, too.
You think so?
Maybe.
I guess so.
It kind of, there's a scene in there where she kind of goes back to her life.
And she's like at that bar.
Yeah. And so they don't really say what it is. But and in a way, I kind of like the fact that she backslides a little, because we all backslide. And the trick is to get back up and walk again. And so, and we don't know when exactly she joined Jesus's entourage. It's interesting. A lot of the people he healed, he did not invite to his group.
That's a good point.
He told them to go home.
Yeah.
And so I think, some people are called to this particular ministry and some are called to go back home. And, I can imagine that after Jesus's resurrection, that there were these little seeds all over everywhere of people that became believers because they had seen him. And all of a sudden they got him. And so there were already little pockets probably of believers sprinkled around who maybe had just continued in their daily life and all that sort of thing.
Yes. That's beautiful. People that have been set free and healed. And their kids have been raised from the dead and so many miraculous things. So, okay, as you dug into this and as you studied, first of all, I wanted to ask, how do you study? Like on a practical level? I know this isn't anything about Mary, but what do you do practically to really get into the nitty-gritty?
Well, I think the most important thing is to read the scripture for yourself. You don't have to be a biblical scholar. You don't have to have lots of commentary notes. Those things are good things, but the Holy Spirit still speaks.
Right.
And he speaks to each of us. He doesn't have favorites. He doesn't have people he doesn't talk to. He doesn't give anybody the cold shoulder or whatever. So the most important thing is to read it for myself, and that's what I do, and I may read it a number of times. And then I will go and I will look at cross-references. I think it's really fun to project your common sense into it. Like, for instance, if Jesus and his followers are walking around the countryside, it's fair to assume they're hot and dusty.
Right.
And you don't have to ignore your common sense or the things that you have learned. They're just practical things. It's fair to assume if they've been walking all day that they're hungry. Right. And tired. Yeah. And maybe even grouchy. So those kinds of things, I think sometimes if you put whatever you're reading in a real common sense context, you might see things that you might not otherwise see. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, do you cross-reference in the sense that you're looking at the story in different versions?
Oh, yeah.
And then you're cross-referencing it with different chapters, like the version in Luke and then the version in Matthew or whatever.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that Luke, when he introduces Mary Magdalene, he says Mary, and in parentheses, some of the translations have it in parentheses, it says Mary called Magdalene. It doesn't say Mary Magdalene, and it's interesting because, when the Bible refers to Jesus of Nazareth, they don't call him Jesus Nazarene. They call him Jesus of Nazareth. They don't call Saul the Tarsian. They say Saul of Tarsus. Now, you could translate. I went back and looked at Strong's, and I'm not a Greek scholar, so I may be garbling this badly. But the words that are there could be translated, or some of them could be translated Mary of Magdala, but that's not what they do. And the word Magdalene is different from Magdala. It's slightly different. So she's called Mary Magdalene, and why? It's interesting because Magdala means tower. And she could be from Magdala, but she could also be Mary the Tower. And if she is, then why? Was she tall, or did Jesus give her that name? Or is it prophetic because she became a tower of the faith? So it's fascinating.
Yes, that is. Is there anything else, I know there is, but just as you studied, that really stood out to you that...
there are a couple of things. And one of them is the fact that Mary and the other women observed the Sabbath. The Romans would not have forced them to do that. But yet they chose to follow the commandment. And I think there's a great lesson in it, in that there are all kinds of crushing, devastating things that happen. We're recording this right after the tragedy at Camp Mystic in Texas. And I can't even imagine what those poor parents are going through, having lost their precious little girls at a Christian camp.
Right.
They have to be asking all the questions. Right. I know you're real, God. I know you're there. I know you love me, but why? Yeah. And Mary Magdalene had to have been thinking, she was an eyewitness. She was in this entourage for 3 years. She'd seen a lot of the things that Jesus had done, and she had heard him teach and experienced his miracles herself. She had to be just devastated. And yet, in her devastation and grief, she chose to follow the seventh commandment.
Mm-hmm.
And she went home and she rested. When what she really wanted to do was to get that body fixed. And it's going to be 2 days in the Middle East till she could go back. It wasn't going to be nice, And so I'm sure she wanted to get on with it and do this one last thing to dignify her friend.
Mm-hmm.
And yet she rested. And if you think about it, I think this is just fascinating. If she had broken the Sabbath commandment and gone on to the tomb and hired somebody to move the stone, and she would have missed the resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
I think obedience, particularly in our culture, I think obedience is we don't talk about it a lot. Mm-hmm. We're all, self-reliant people that don't need to be told what to do.
Right.
But she chose obedience, and it put her exactly in God's timing to get this wonderful gift that she was given of being able to behold the risen Christ.
Yeah. That's a strange thing to think about, that if you step out of obedience, if you walk in disobedience, even in a seemingly minor moment.
Oh, yeah.
That you could miss completely God's timing, his movement, his miracle, him wanting you to be present for something.
Yeah. I think about that when I'm speeding.
Oh, yes.
Maybe if I follow the recommended speed, I won't be at the intersection where the accident's going to happen, where the person's going to pull out.
I've thought that before.
Yeah.
I've thought that. Like when you come up on a wreck a few minutes later and you think,
yeah.
Lord, thank you that I got hung up back there, or that,
Right. I think about Joseph and he kept doing the right thing. What do you do when you don't know what to do? You do the next right thing. It's kind of like Anna and Elsa, the next right thing. Mm-hmm. And he kept doing that, and he kept saying, and God was with him. And of course, by the time he's down in the dungeon, I'm thinking Joseph had to be saying, why don't you go be with my brothers?
Right.
Let's start working out here,
But doing the next right thing, and it's not doing so good.
I don't see anything good, but yet eventually, it all went full circle. But obedience is really important, and she did. You notice when Jesus tells her to go tell the apostles, she immediately leaves, and the last thing we hear her say is, "I've seen the Lord." So she didn't defer and wait around and say, well, I'd like to hang out just a little bit longer.
Right. I have questions. I want to ask you something.
Yeah. Mary was incredibly brave, I think.
Mm-hmm.
One of the Gospels says the women are standing afar off, but they must have crept closer because Jesus is able to say to John, woman, behold your son and behold your mother, whatever. Mm-hmm. And they're right there. They can hear him. So they had to have been close. So, here's a guy that's being executed that the Pharisees and many other Jewish leaders despise. And they want to stamp out any influence that he may have had. And so she had to be really brave, and she stuck there. I think it's brave just to watch it.
Oh.
I mean, I could barely watch the Passion of Christ, and I'm sure it was nowhere near as bad as it really was. And I've heard D-Day veterans say that the Private Ryan, the invasion scene was nowhere near as bad as it really was. And my dad was a veteran, and he wouldn't watch any of that stuff. So, she was brave to stick it out.
Yeah, she was. I can't imagine. It's hard to imagine it's almost like when your faith gets turned upside down and you thought God was working in one way, for her to think, you are the Messiah.
Oh, yeah.
You are the one.
Yeah.
You've set me free, and I walked with you, and I've watched everything, and then suddenly he's gone.
Yeah.
And he died a mortal death. He died.
Yeah.
And I just can't imagine that reckoning. And I love when you, in the devotional, when you talk about in that not knowing and in the confusion, just go back to what you know. And, for me, I'm I've said this many times to you already. I'm 2 months postpartum. I do feel like I'm a little bit in a fog. And it's like right now in this season of life, I just need to go back to what I know. I don't feel like I'm necessarily, just being honest, like able to get in the Word every day. It's just life is a little bit of a blur right now.
Sure.
And all the routines and things that I leaned on have kind of been upended. And it's like, Lord, I'm more talking to you just throughout the day versus any dedicated time. And I swear to you, when I think I'm going to have a moment with my coffee and my Bible, I hear a baby cry. And I'm like, I am up earlier than I have ever been. And there's still somebody waking up.
Yeah.
And so,
Have you ever read about Susanna Wesley?
no.
It's fascinating. There's a Eric Metaxas book out where he talks about 7 women of the faith, and she's one of them. And it's real short. You can,
Yes.
I promise you.
I could do it.
Yeah, it's about.
I could do it between
that
days
chapter is yeah.
Okay.
But she had something like, I don't remember exactly, but like 19 children or just an enormous number of children.
So 4 is nothing. And she would laugh. She'd be like,
Yeah, ha ha, you're on it. It's a cakewalk. Anyway, but she was very poor. I can picture her in like a 1-room place, and she may have had 2 or 3 rooms, but not much. And she would take her skirts. She'd sit in her rocking chair, tell her children to get away from her, take her skirts and put them up over her head so that she could read her Bible. Can you imagine? So I think...
give me a skirt.
I think God has a sense of humor. But the truth is, our spiritual time with the Lord doesn't have to be complicated to be profound.
Right.
It can be simple.
Yeah.
And be profound. And He knows what you're going through. He's not expecting you to write poems in iambic pentameter while you're trying to nurse a baby and keep the middle 2 from killing each other in the meantime.
Literally.
Yeah. And
I know.
I mean,
Yes.
so I think sometimes we put a guilt trip on ourselves when I think we look at other people who seem to have accomplished a lot and, have all the balls in the air. Well, then in the first place, you don't know what they're going through.
Right.
But in the second place, we're supposed to run our race in our lane.
Yes.
And it's interesting that Mary Magdalene, she wasn't a preacher or a leader in the group. She was a server, really. And she'd given everything. I mean, I think she had devoted all of her assets to this group. And so had the other women. And so what are they going to do, at this point of devastation? Well, they don't know.
Right.
But they just have to live today. They don't have to,
Yes. Right. The obedience of just today.
Yeah.
I know. I was thinking, I keep a prayer journal, and at the beginning of this year, before Thomas, our youngest, was born, when was he born? He was born in April. I just was writing down some things I was believing for this year. Lord, I'm believing for this. And it's been interesting because we're 6 months into the year, almost, 7 months. And very specifically, I mean, I went back the other day and was like, oh my gosh, He's answered that. He's answered that. He's answered that. And it's been such a faith builder for me because in a season when I don't feel like I've been able to invest a lot of time in just praying over our family or whatever, He has still been faithful to know what's in my heart, what we're believing for. And He's answered so many prayers. And then the other thing is when you said, go back to what you know is true and just rest and wait in the Lord. It's been an encouragement for me to go back and see He's been so faithful to our family over the years. And even if things feel foggy right now, I have clarity over here.
Right.
In looking at years of His faithfulness in our family,
Oh, yeah.
And so.
And that's a great word. We forget the prayers we prayed a month ago.
Yes.
And that God answers those prayers. Yeah. And, sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes it's no. And the ones I really hate are wait.
Yes.
The
ones that sit there on the list.
Yeah.
I have a list in the back of things we're still praying for. And some of those things have been there for years now. And it's like, okay, well, we're still praying. We're still believing.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, was there anything else outside of what we've already talked about that you learned or wanted to share?
Oh, just that women who sometimes feel disenfranchised from the church have an important part to play, and that Jesus does talk to us directly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't, it's not that we shouldn't sit under knowledgeable teachers and open ourselves up to whatever flow of information is there, but don't be intimidated if the Lord's telling you something and it isn't, I've never heard an audible voice.
Right.
But there have been times in my life that I knew he was saying exactly a particular thing to me. Mm-hmm. And so the Lord does speak to women. Mm-hmm. And I guess one little message I might have for men, particularly husbands, is that if a woman tells you that the Lord told him something, not that you should roll over, but that you should listen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because he gives women important messages to relate.
Yes.
So
definitely. Yeah. And I think a lot of times women are sensitive to the prompting of the Holy Spirit and and to bring it to, your husband and say, I really feel like this is what God's saying for our family.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed the study, and I'm just thankful for you and the time that you spent gathering and studying and putting it all together.
It's a joy for me. That's what I love to do.
Yeah. We're thankful to have you.
Thanks.
For sure. All right. That's it. Thank you for listening, ladies, and we'll be back soon.